A very warm welcome to all our eminent panelists, engineers, technology experts, architects, design professionals, and friends from the retail industry today. It's indeed a pleasure to host you all at the fourth edition of webinar series called Business in the Time of COVID, Automation in Retail and Supply Chain Management. Our last three webinars, where we discussed solutions for restaurants, offices, and retail, we've had some great insights from panelists resonating, meaningful change, which is required to make these spaces accessible, trustworthy, and ready for a relaunch. With the help of integration of right technology, design, and innovation-centric changes, one can fight the challenge at hand and keep it more adaptable. We are hoping to add similar such initiatives in future, looking at fantastic response for last three webinars of our office. Studio Mezzo is really honored to have expert speakers and attendees from diverse sectors of design, engineering, architecture, international design, and from retail, supply, and supply chain management who have joined us today. As a design professional, I often wonder, designing for us always means that retail is all about customer interaction, point of sales, display ideas, wayfinding aesthetics of the store. We often discount that design's role in integration at the back end of these robust or rather big, even smaller stores is very important in providing essentials to us daily. And COVID-19 has actually shifted our focus to all these activities, back on the retail, back on the supply chain management. And for us today, essential products, rapid advancement in technologies has driven the retail industry to some another level altogether. Post-COVID, there has been rise in customer expectations, which has also led to the sector to leverage advanced technologies to address these needs and preferences, which is very interesting for us to now note. As we already have approached digital age, and businesses need to optimize their workflows to maintain competitive edge, and supply chain automation here allows them to perform just that. Consumer products and retail companies are planning ahead. Intelligent automation in the supply chain is expected to reach 79% in consumer products industry and 85% in retail over next 3 years. Organizations using intelligent automations are experiencing array of benefits. Supply chain automation generally is a process of systemizing parts or all of a workflow to enhance processes. While the surge in online retail continues to grow and has accelerated, many retailers are struggling to meet demand spurred by today's connected consumer. Thus, by leveraging process automation, retailers can lessen supply chain complexity and eradicate the risk of error while swelling efficiency and pace. We are at a tipping point of automation in retail and purchase. And post-COVID, this is the reality of adaptation, which is yearning to grow. So without wasting a moment here, I would like to introduce you all to our speakers for the discussion today. Our panelist one, I would like to welcome Mr. Govind Pandey. Hi, Govind.
Hi, Kajal. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's keeping safe and doing well.
Yeah. Govind is a senior engineering manager at Flipkart. Govind has supported teams to leverage engineering and artificial intelligence to deliver transformational business impact. His latest stint in the area of supply chain automation, predictive interventions, and process optimizations at Flipkart. In the past, he has also been associated with 24/7 AI and Oracle. Govind here will present his personal views during the discussion and is not representing the views of any other entity. Panelists two, please welcome Suresh Srinivasan. Hi, Suresh, how are you?
Hi, doing fine. Hope everyone's safe and in high spirits.
Thank you, Suresh, for joining in. Yeah, Suresh is Chief Product and Technology Head at SnapBiz. Suresh is IIT Madras alumnus, and he has also done his PhD in computer engineering from Penn State University. Suresh has personally assumed technology leadership roles at Intel and ARM while working on the same of the most cutting-edge chip design technology. Suresh has built and exited his IoT setup, providing India's largest health-tech IoT project for the government of Karnataka in partnership with TVS Logistics, which helped with predictive maintenance of medical equipment of the National Health Mission. Currently, he is the director leading technology and products in Snapis, his fast-growing digital Kirana ecosystem.
We are also very happy to have Varun Srivastava. Hi, Varun.
Hi everyone. Hope all good. Welcome to this great discussion that we are going to present of.
Yeah. Varun is the head of design, user experience and industrial design at Grey Orange. He is a postgraduate in product design from NID. Varun is a versatile designer. Varun has extensive experience in design and development, and many of his products are in the market, having worked in various domains from automotive, service industry to consumer goods. At Grey Orange, he's one of the few designers who are working in supply chain and warehouse domain. As a head of design, he is leading both the user experience team and industrial design team at Grey Orange, a unique proposition balancing the hardware and software. Varun's current role involves creating new innovative design solutions and solving existing problem areas for the end users. Currently, as a design leadership role, he is instrumental in merging business goals with design goals for design-driven technology platforms for end users. We also have here Ramesh Kumar Katredi, Head Engineering at Jumbo Tail. Hi Ramesh.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I hope you guys are having a very good start to your weekend. So yes, we are happy to share our views here. Yes.
Yeah, so Ramesh heads the engineering at Jumbo Tail, a leading B2B e-commerce marketplace for food and grocery, bringing in the expertise of building large-scale distributed systems, mobile web apps, desktop applications, and cloud infrastructure to help their customers. Over the last 4 years, he has built the entire supply chain systems from scratch with the vision of building smart warehouses, and is proud to say that all their warehouse processes are paperless and driven by technology. Prior to Jumbo Tail, Ramesh co-founded What's the Plan, a platform to explore, plan, and book activities and events. He has also worked with Adobe as a computer scientist and worked across multiple products upon graduating from NIT Warangal in 2011.
Thanks a lot.
Special thanks to Neha Saraswat for joining in as a co-moderator and guiding us through this initiative. Neha has experience about 16 years in UX and design. She's a product designer, speaker, and a writer. She holds a master's degree in product design from NID and is a graduate of architecture. Neha has developed products in conversation design, artificial intelligence, banking and finance management, time scheduling and event management, along with data processing and decision support predictors. Neha understands the meaning, importance, and sync between creative inspiration and corporate aspiration. She helps achieving business outcomes by aligning influencers, bringing to life customer story, making sure we are designing the right thing before we design things right. Moving along, I would also like you to, have an introduction to my colleague, Niranjan. Niranjan is an architect from School of Planning and Architecture, Delhi. She's a team lead in building materials for Studio Mezzo. Niranjan has also delved into deeper study and suggested some extremely pertinent design interventions useful for retail environments. Niranjan will also be co-moderating the session along with us. And as we head on, I would also like to introduce myself. I'm Kajal. I'm founder at Studio Mezzo. I'm a graduate of National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, specializing in spatial and communication design studies. With over 16 years of experience in design, I have worked in various verticals like retail, offices, restaurants, cinemas, and museum and experience centers. I've had the pleasure of working with a few prestigious clients like Future Group, Nerolac, Samsung, and PVR Cinemas in past, and quite recently with Punjab National Bank, Haldiram, and Delight Cinemas, to name a few. To set the ball rolling, I would like to, invite Niranjan to kind of give us a basic premise of this discussion. Niranjan, over to you. Please share your presentation with everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Kajal. Just let me know if you can view the screen.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
So today, we aim to address the challenges posed by COVID and how we can tackle them through automation, back-end management, front-end experience, and pave the way forward. Essential retail has witnessed a dramatic increase in demand, especially for e-commerce brands as the store footfalls have reduced. Safety concerns and availability of employees are additional obstacles disrupting the functioning of businesses. The major aspects that can give us the solutions are supply chain and inventory management, warehouse management, delivery, front-end integration, and customer experience. I will now briefly take you all through each of these aspects. When it comes to supply chain and inventory management, it is essential for the supply chain to be designed with the ability to continuously gather data, analyze, and react to it in real time to function more efficiently. Brands have leveraged technologies to achieve the same. Shopix is one of the platforms which connects all the stakeholders in a location to provide various services, one of which is maintaining a virtual inventory for the retailers. This service has made it convenient for the users to keep up with the consumer demand and avoid unnecessary bulk buying. Additionally, incorporation of technology at each level results in multiple benefits, from being able to reduce the inventory to ensuring the quality of products that are reaching the end user. BigBasket has achieved the same by leveraging analytics, Internet of Things, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. Further, warehouse functions need to be accurate, faster, and flexible in order to keep up with the evolving consumer needs and increase the throughput. Interestingly, machine learning is not just limited to digital marketing, but is extremely useful in planning warehouses and making them more efficient with predictive and robotic systems. Internet of Things can transform the existing warehouse by empowering employees and workers with the ability to take decisions based on accurate data and avoid risks posed by human error. This also extends beyond the warehouse by integration with the front-end user interface and the delivery side of it. The robotic growth has further enhanced the warehouse processes by performing tasks of slotting, picking, and getting goods ready to deliver. Brands can thus save time, space, dependency on human labor, as machine learning allows the robots to improvise as per the environment. Amazon recently applied this concept to its sorting facilities in order to achieve one-day deliveries. All the processes, right from slotting, picking, and moving the goods to the delivery counter, are done by robots. Workers no longer have to run around hunting for packages, but play an important role in planning the system and identifying flaws. Delivery systems have also witnessed various innovations, considering the consumer's need to be able to receive orders on the same day. Fortinos Canada devised two methods. One is Instacart, which offers 1 hour delivery, and the other one involves setting up of pickup stations at convenient locations for customers to pick up their online orders. In the same lines, the concept of dark stores proves to be beneficial during the time when the customer does not wish to enter the store. Not only is it convenient for the customers, but for the brands as well, now that they are getting to use space, organize products, and easily automate the processes in a way that is efficient to ensure on-time deliveries. BigBasket has also taken a step ahead and introduced Baby Instant, an app-based cashier-less kiosk, which they are calling the Smart Store, which will serve the customers 24/7. Lastly, in case of front-end integration and customer experience, Amazon has already revolutionized this aspect in its Go stores, which use cameras and scanners to allow the customers to enter the store, pick up what they need, and make the payment later through the app. This has also benefited the brand to understand the user better and personalize experiences across all channels. Water Sale is an Indian initiative in the same lines, but it differs as it focuses on the big data by only tracking what customers buy instead of tracing their movement throughout the store. Smart shopping carts are also being introduced in supermarkets to offer a touch-free experience and self-checkout. The COVID-induced setback is witnessed across all businesses, but it has also provided with an opportunity of rethinking our retail strategies and incorporating technologies in a way that benefits all the stakeholders while keeping the individuals safe. Over to you, Kajal.
Thank you, Niranjan, for the presentation. Interestingly, Indian retail fabric is peppered with coexistence of local kirana shops or mom and pop stores to organized retailers, along with standardized international, retail giants, all competing to get the growing Indian consumers' attention and its vast market, be it artificial intelligence, robotics, data analytics, to machine learning. They have all come to fore today in context of COVID-19 impact. Obviously, there are huge benefits which are attached to these integration for early adopters of automation, such as it can impact business growth by increase in revenue, reduce costs, increase in competitive advantage, improve customer experience, and improve inventory productivity. It benefits operational effectiveness by operational efficiency and agility, drive culture of innovation, improve quality and speed of decisions, and extend and expand capabilities. It also enables insights into integrated data resources through enhanced information analytics, through the information available. So, opening the floor to questions, I would like to invite Suresh from Snapbiz. And Suresh, I would like to ask you a question about, as we're talking about COVID-19 challenge, what are the evolving customer needs which you see post-COVID times and behavior to be addressed by, small or medium-sized retail stores, which we call kirana stores now?
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kajal. So yeah, it's a pleasure to actually be talking about this in this forum. Certainly COVID was a very interesting time. But let me just also rewind back a little before COVID, right? And I would just probably put up a slide as well, which talks about the Indian retail ecosystem, right? So see, even before COVID, the Indian retail economy or transaction space is almost a $500 billion space, right? And out of that, there's almost 90%, which is actually kirana transaction, right? So it is a 90% dominated by kiranas, even as of today. And I think even big box retail or online stores have sort of entered like a consumer base of, let's say, 20-30 million or even a little more than that, but it's sort of sub 5% as of today, right? And large retail formats still are sort of working on the unit metrics because it's still like a very heavy real estate in the country, and the profitability of all those have to be yet established. So kirana stores were always there, and under COVID, it was probably the only unsung hero who was supporting this whole 1.3 billion population of the country, and we've never been in more limelight than before. And it's primarily and in kirana space, what we really saw was that the consumers were the whole workflow of the ecosystem changed. So earlier, like a manufacturer would chase marketeer chasing supply chain person, supply chain going down to kiranas chasing consumers. While during COVID, there was a complete flip. Like consumer demand was that give me the products, and the whole the demand chain completely reversed, and more footfalls were coming to kiranas. Like pretty much all the stores that we saw that are with us have seen significant footfall increase, significant business increase. The median baskets of every kirana stores have increased quite significantly during COVID. A lot of consumers, I mean, there were a lot of transformations in consumer thinking towards kiranas as well. I mean, sort of started seeing them as the fastest delivery for them. A new found respect for the local kiranas, which are always delivering to them. There were few transformations with respect to adoption of digital channels. So more and more kirana stores started approaching us for online delivery apps, mobile applications where consumers can order from them. So digitization, going virtual for online ordering for the consumers, that increased quite a bit. Digital payments was another massive transformation. A lot of kirana stores adopted digital payment technologies. So we integrated a lot of digital technologies in our platform for supporting the consumer needs at that time. And if I also talk about like some finer transformations, there was interesting behavior of consumers on purchasing health foods, for example. A lot of ginger, turmeric purchases, transformation towards more packaged foods, or willingness to pay premium for slightly more packaged foods because of the feeling of safety that they get out of packaged foods. Some of these were sort of some of the key behavioral changes on the consumer side, which were sort of also driving a lot of trends or behavioral changes in the supply chain, or the entire ecosystem to transform itself to cater to these needs. So, so this was sort of an interesting thing, and since we sort of tracked the entire ecosystem, we could get a comprehensive view of this whole story, actually.
No, I quite agree with that, Suresh. Not only people were going to kirana stores, but they were more accessible also at this point of time, because they were located very close to the smaller localities, and with COVID-19, movement and restriction and movement. So I guess there was also this whole accessibility issue, which was also being played out, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I mean, obviously, moving along to Ramesh, like at Jumbotail also, if you guys are doing distribution channels for kirana stores, and I'm sure you must have seen this huge surge of demand and being able to strengthen it more during that time. So how is the technology used at Jumbotail in helping and addressing these problems in unorganized food and grocery sector during COVID?
Right. So food and grocery vastly been unorganized, as you mentioned. So, and we have come a long way since the time we started in organizing it. But I would say that is a tip of iceberg, and there's a lot more to do. Because if I take the overall food chain, right, there is farmer, mills, bigger distributor, and then distributors, and then retailers, and then end customers like us. Right. So if you think about inefficiencies and transparencies, you said they're across every handshake, right? So, and the first and foremost problem that we started to solve was on the retailer end, right? So retailers also have come a long way in digital transformation, where 4 years ago we had to recharge their data packs for them to transact online. So that is the level of adoption that they lack. And right now they're on digital platforms and they're asking for superior experiences and faster deliveries. And that is the kind of transformation they have gone into the thing. And if I go further up the chain, right, so there are sellers who are still little not adaptable, but still the digital transformation is coming because of the regulatory requirements and everything, right? So this digital adoption, when I put it into Corona as a context, right, I would say it almost came as a surprise test for us for our 4 years of learning. So we had to do a lot of things in the online delivery channels have disrupted. That's where everybody realized the essence of the kirana, which is around them, right? So as we are aware, so hoarding is one of the concepts that has started coming in, and then kiranas were hoarded. So now kiranas need a partner who can actually deliver them, and that is where our demand has spiked. Like I would say overnight, we have seen like 3x, as in now 2.5x of scale, right? So that is where kiranas need refill, and we are proud to say that we operated without any glitch, and we didn't have any outage at all, as in except for that one Janta Curfew day. Rest of days we are able to happily deliver them. Right? So few things that we have to. I mean, having said that, this didn't come at a very ease, as in there are a lot of teams which are working overnight to just make it happen, right? So where if I have to give a few examples, right? So where customers were able to take the orders, but to deliver, the kiranas themselves are not able to reach their kiranas because nobody is supposed to move. There is a restriction on the ground, right? So, and kiranas typically didn't have any identity to show police, right? That's where we take product design. All of us came together and we thought, chalo, we'll give one kirana ID for them, right? Where it is Jumbotail attested kirana ID, where it tells these are the valid businesses with their GSTN, and we say that these are essential services, right? This one thing, I mean, we have a customer delight team where like any Kiranas, they're facing problems, they can come and call them anytime and tell. That's how we got to know about it. And suddenly after this one thing, there are a lot of calls that are just stopped, and these guys were able to happily take, right? If I take this example, this small feature seems like a feature that is made in a day by all the teams, but the background work was laid out over the last 4 years, right? So where they were able to happily communicate with a person, like as a person, and also e-commerce platform, and they are able to adopt. If I take the same example a little forward, right? So the customers previously used to take deliveries like during daytimes, right? So suddenly they have moved to a fashion where somebody is operating from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and somebody from 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. Somebody is even asking for deliveries at their doorstep, and then they would want to take it, and then later on, like they would want to open their shop. That way, lot of things got disrupted in our supply chain and logistics as well. The way we need to operate supply chain and logistics. So as you might be aware, so any small change, supply chain is all about processes, cascading processes. One process that is changed upfront will have very lot of effect in the downstream processes. So to do this, we need a lot of technology foothold. That is why we are able to do this. To give you a simple example of all our systems are capacity aware. When I say capacity aware, capacity has there are multiple dynamics such as how many deliveries can a simple hub do, how many crates can I dispatch from warehouse, or how many bags of rice I can actually dispatch from a warehouse, or how many workers are going to be there, how many heroes are going to be there to deliver. These are all, there are tons of factors that are there, and there is a system in place, which is a capacity system, and that drives all of this ecosystem in us. That is what could give a superior customer experience to us, where if some hub we see that there is a, I mean, because definitely there are a lot of delivery executives which panicked, they went back to their villages, and there was a lot of churn in our even employees. We had to reassure them and get back. So that's where, like, wherever we see a problem, right, we could tweak this capacity system, and then customer is well informed, right? So that is where I would say technology, without this technology or like this 4 years of platform groundwork, right, I don't really know how we would have even actually delivered to Kirana, because Kiranas are the only ones like from whom we are buying, right? So that way, I mean, that's where I think whole of our company and also as a team, right, we were able to see the importance of the work, not just for Kirana, for the whole ecosystem, how important the work that we are doing, right? So there are a lot more examples, such as like creating such B2C platforms for Kirana to sell to their customers, right? Within a day, like just bring up something so that they can actually interface with their customers, or like giving them, and also hoarding is one of the concepts that we need to control, how to do that. And that is where again design comes as a very crucial element, because when somebody is trying to hoard, you have a lot of data on his purchase behavior, you can understand that he's hoarding, you need to stop him. But the thing is, at the same time, you need to be empathetic towards him and say that this is why we are doing, make him understand through design, right? Otherwise, you should not feel left out that, okay, I'm trying to procure and then there is nobody to procure from. So that's where, like, taking these users through that delicate moment, right? So through technology and design, that's where I would say there are a lot of challenges in the design aspects as well in that thing. So overall, I would say that has been like 1 month of like firefighting, but I mean, it is all worth it, I would say, definitely. And we have seen a lot more opportunities coming up, and we tested our scale of our systems and trust that our customers are invested in us. Everything is like definitely worth the effort that we have put in.
Wow, Ramesh, it's such a wonderful story. When you talk about Kirana stores, which are so small, but the ecosystem which is supporting it is so massive. Because when you talk about the cascading effect, the domino effect of capacities, of hoarding, customer behavior, Kirana store owner behaviors, there's just so much which impacts. We don't even realize what it takes to, support such a small entity, which is actually just essential goods, I mean, it's amazing.
Example as well, right there. So the returns, right, as in Kiranas, when they are not able to take returns, right, the damages that happen because of the transit, like in supply chain, the number of times you touch the items, you have more chance of damaging it, right? So amount of food wastage that is going to happen because of that was high. Returns have to be controlled on the seller side. So that is, just yes, as you mentioned, there's a massive background system on seller ecosystem and supply chain logistics ecosystem.
Right. It's so wonderful to hear, like, obviously everybody's working towards trying to create something out of COVID, but this is something which kind of works on ground, right? You're actually working along the ground reality, trying to tweak your product so that, a smaller system can work somewhere more efficiently. So it's on ground learning, it's adaptation as you go along, and, integrating design and technology wherever the user feels the gap, and you feel an opportunity to kind of fill that up with a, right amount of or right kind of intervention, right? So amazing. I think Jumbo Tail in itself is a very interesting story, and very heartening to hear like what you guys do back into health. These guys, amazing. Also kind of it throws light to companies who are essentially again working at a different level altogether. Bringing in say Govind here. I would like to ask you, Govind, how are companies becoming more demand driven, and what technologies are being leveraged to achieve the same? How can e-commerce brands address the challenge, which is the challenge of increased demands now?
Thanks, Kajal. Very good question. And I think Suresh sometime back talked about how demand has significantly changed. The demand patterns have significantly changed in the recent few months, right? And we also touched about the change in supply. And Ramesh was talking about how Kiranas have stepped in and how tech has actually enabled them because of regulations, right? So a wonderful job all around in this. If I were to take a step back and just think about supply chain management as a concept, right? To me, it's a very simple factor of balancing supply and demand. Right? It's as simple as that. There is supply, there is demand, we balance it. The challenge comes, and the challenge traditionally has been that we are trying to balance supply and demand today for the future. Right? That's been the traditional way of operating. So I'll forecast demand into the future, I'll forecast supply into the future, let's say 3 months, and I'll try and balance them out. Right? COVID threw all of that out of the park. Right? We were all prepared, all inventory. Many companies would have stocked inventory on lifestyle and a lot of things, right? But COVID came in and said, hey, here's your forecast, I'm throwing it into the dustbin. Doesn't really matter. And I think that's where I see technology intervening as we move forward, right? I think, so let's touch each of these pivots one by one. Let's talk about demand first. We'll very likely be moving from long-term demand forecasts to near-term demand forecasts, right? What that necessarily means is that, technology has to change fundamentally, right? Anybody who has worked in the supply chain industry will tell you that forecasting demand is one of the most crucial, yet one of the toughest jobs out there, right? A data scientist can tell you that this is going to be my forecast for the next 1 year for all of India. That's okay. That's an okay problem to solve. Ask the same data scientist what is going to be the forecast for North Bangalore, South Bangalore, and I need it split by weeks over the next 3 months. The data scientist will very likely throw his or her hands up, right? So that's where one of the technical challenges is going to be, and something that we need to solve for. And with this, I'll move to the next pivot, which is supply. Assume that we have this black box which can tell you what is the near-term demand going to look like. Assume somebody has done it for you. What do you do with that? Right? Is your supply fungible? Are you agile enough to adjust your supply to be able to cater to that changing demand? Right? So that's on the supply side. And it's not just constrained supply, it's also about fungibility, right? Let's take workforce as an example, one element of supply, right? If we take workforce as an example, companies had typically pivoted on specialist supplies. So let's take service men, right? So I'll have a person who can service a washing machine, as an example. Now I'll have this other person who's a specialist in servicing ACs. But if I keep going down that path and my supply gets constrained, it's not going to work out, even if I'm able to predict short-term demand. So that's where I think technology is going to play a very crucial role in helping the workforce go through guided training, go through upskilling, and more so in a self-serve fashion, right? And just continuing on the workforce example itself, I think the safety of the workforce and the safety of the customer has been of paramount importance. And with COVID, it's only getting more important, right? So that's another area where I see technology playing a role and helping, companies pivoting and trying to help out, right? The other aspect, and this is where I think thinking of the entire ecosystem and not individual companies, is that if workforce is segregated across multiple participants in the ecosystem, I think the ecosystem as a whole suffers, right? So it's important to bring workforce across participants and entities together. And Kiranas are a classic example, right? And that's what we have been talking about for the last 5-10 minutes, Ramesh. through shedding a lot of light there. But there's a lot of other aspects, right? And if we were to, let's say, make supply fungible across different participants in this ecosystem, I think it's high time we came up with the standard, right? All of those of you who have been in the tech world for quite some time know that there are standards. So there are standards for image exchange, there are standards for video exchange. Is there a standard for blue collar workforce exchange, right? And that's one area I think we will have to fix as an ecosystem. And I do see investment happening there. I'll pause here. I can answer any other questions. But just to summarize, I think on the demand side, we'll have to move from long-term forecast to short-term forecast. On the supply side, we'll have to be very agile and be able to react to the near-term forecast, right? With our workforce, train them, or anything else. So yes, back to you, Kaki.
Thanks, Govind, for kind of putting a perspective to all of this, because like you rightly pointed out, demand and supply is a very, very important factor, and being agile and being able to focus your attention at the right demand is extremely important in behaving and tweaking your systems to be able to address it. And obviously, there is a huge amount of research which goes into it. There's a huge amount of finding out what is required, whether it is R&D and putting in technology to find out again what's exactly the pattern and a way of doing this. But obviously, COVID-19 was an unprecedented event which kind of threw everybody off the curve, and we just tried to figure out what exactly one can do to address the challenge at hand. I would like to shift focus to Varun. Interestingly, everybody has been talking about integration. Varun, since you are at Grey Orange, you guys are always talking about devising systems and using technology, using machine learning, and you've been addressing to various types of companies, right? So I would like to quote from your website only, which I found extremely interesting, is that today, since customer driven choices are in thousands, there are multiple channels and destinations, and unlimited demands and unlimited buyers, hundreds of form of factors. Now you must execute on all of it in time windows which are never before imagined. So what are these products which address such challenges, like
Yeah, thanks, Kajal. There are a couple of things that are happening in the supply chain, and it's quite a very interesting field from a design perspective. And the things are changing. To COVID-19, things have accelerated on. The things were going on a supply chain automation mode, but that have been accelerated to many folds. So a couple of things that are happening up to give a view on this. I would like to share my screen. The channels, customer modes have changed. People are trying to find up a different applications mode, trying to address on different parameters, platforms. On sales and delivery side, both of them. And we operate in the fulfillment center, how to take care of, because from the supply chain also, and from the demand sale also, we have to handle up, understand the extremely changing scenarios which are happening up. What are the technologies improvement on happening up? So Grey Orange is aggressively working on understanding the sales, the ever changing sales channels, and ever changing the delivery channels and the customer taste altogether. So we had one of the key things that I would like to have, and right now we had a conventional warehouses which are a labor intensive, in which you pick up and provide the service. It's a very labor intensive market kind of things where there are changes of era. So we are trying to understand from the approach principle, how we can automate some of the things, mandatory thing or very manual intensive operations. We will try to automate, and we have a number of solutions to handle it. Instead of having persons to move, approach is changed from goods to person. So we bring all the warehouse materials and everything to the operator who's working on that thing. So at the same time, we are trying to address up the various challenges which every fulfillment center happens up, and to solve up these ones, these are also being changed at a very fast pace. Changing scenarios, new things are added up. So we had a couple of solutions in which we had software products and hardware products also to help and automate very fast and understand the challenging needs on that. So some of these couple of products are there which we are trying to address up through our systems.
Right.
Yeah. What do you guys?
Very refreshing to see your systems design slide in your presentation. Varun, it brings back memories of design college when we would be talking about what all design systems and system design approach would be. Refreshing to see that the companies who are doing hardware and software integration at this point and being able to address the ever changing and evolving needs of the customer and the industry as such. Neha, what do you think? Like, Varun's presentation was all about integrating and showing what exactly that, integrated hardware and software approach could be.
So actually, when Govind was speaking about not just the demand from consumer about the things that they need or consumable that they want to buy, but the demand could be of multiple kind, and which one of the things that he touched upon was demand of workforce. And interestingly, that kind of takes us to the segue of Grey Orange, where Varun is trying to kind of build devices. Not Varun as in Grey Orange as such, is building devices that kind of mitigate some bit of robotics and automation pertaining to workforce. But it's interesting that all of it is to support the end consumer needs. And in that, Varun is at the juncture of technology and design. And doing that, I have a question for Varun. Since you've been standing at the intersection of design and tech integration, can you tell us what is the role of design in improving these products, and why is it important to make it as an integral part of both hardware and software?
So very good question there, and that's as a designer, I find it a very challenging and very interesting opportunity areas. There are a lot of immense scope in that one. Once you are into it, you can find opportunity in every. Can we improve this? Can we improve that one? Even from a warehouse operator to a warehouse manager to overall system integrator, there are immense opportunities for designers to play up a role. And one of the key factors that where as a designer we had a flexibility to understand problem from a very bigger perspective, from a very human side. To just give an overview on that part, I would just. So if you guys can see, we all work toward an innovation from a business side, from a technology side, and from a design side. So as a designer, my aspect is look from the human side, how we can automate some of the mundane processes, some of very laborious processes, some of which are constantly freaking out an operator or something which are very challenging. Can we provide a better visibility to a warehouse manager in terms of what is happening in the warehouse, some of the dynamics, and all these comes under a very great role and very crucial role to meet up the demand and the supply game. There are a number of challenges in that, and every section needs an automation, every section needs a visibility criteria, and there we as a designers play a very great role in understanding the key requirement, developing a solution around this, and is the solution viable enough from a technology and a business perspective? That is also very play around. Should we play from a technology perspective? Should we play from a business perspective? And how these integrate to provide a very innovative product? I think all the key factors are very crucial from that one. And as a designer, our role is to merge or align with the business objective, align with the latest technology, integrate our different technologies. Can we do this one? Can we integrate some of the things in that one? And toward bringing an innovative solution in the fulfillment centers.
Right. So what you're talking about is very interesting. saying that you would go with the approach that human has to be served first, and then you would look for
Yes.
opportunities where it can be automated.
Because that would anyhow convert into the business solution altogether. If you problem solve a customer and the user problem, that would definitely give you a very good solution in terms of a business objective. And apart from that, it would create a niche segment for you from competition.
Right, right. I would actually ask this question to Govind. While I would like you to hang around and think through as well. So Govind, we spoke of a bit of automation, and we all get very excited. Especially I do get very excited about seeing things being automated. Uh, but what technology and innovations are key to supply chain optimization? So is that can this be entirely automated? Are there limitations, as in do we see that?
Very pertinent question, Neha, and I think Varun was talking about it. Ramesh also shed some light on it, right? But before I answer this, I think I'll present a very simple analogy which kind of hit me hard when I first realized it, right? So think about the two largest employers in India, right? The one thing common about both of them, and keep guessing though, I'll tell you what they are, but the two largest employers in India, the common thing about them is they have managed to reach all parts of India, right? And that is their vision, that is their mission, that is what they live for, right? And I think that should give you a hint. The three largest, the third, first and third, right, are Indian Railways, number one, and Indian Post, number three, right? And
Right.
both of these have reached all of India. Now, taking a step back and making an assumption that when we talk about supply chain in the Indian context, we talk about these companies, that is our goal. We want to reach all of India, right? Is it practical to have multiple Indian railways? I mean, imagine that workforce, right? Is it practical? Would a business want that? And my opinion has always been a resounding no. Right? We cannot. It's not practical for a business to build an Indian railways plus Indian post kind of a workforce. So yes, automation is key. And Grey Orange is one of the foremost Indian players there. So kudos to that, right? And I think Prem Kumar has also, one of the attendees has asked the same question. Is it processes? Is it technology? Right? It's going to be technology. But let's break this down a little, and that will lead to the limitations part of it, right? So if we break down automation, I see this as comprising of three fundamental aspects, right, or three pillars. The first pillar is systemization, all right? Systemization is, for example, taking a business process on the ground, a physical business process on the ground, going with Grey Orange example itself. So a person taking a packet and saying, oh, this is the PIN code for UP, putting it in one basket, and taking another PIN code and saying, oh, this is a PIN code for Gujarat, so putting it in another basket. Right? And Grey Orange has a solution which is a sortation belt, which can do this automatically for us, right? So that's systemization. That's where it starts, right? So we have to systemize the business processes. The next step is optimization, all right? And you mentioned that in the question. When we say optimization, how do I distribute my sortation belts to be able to most efficiently sort all the shipments going all over India, right? So that's the question we'll answer when we do optimization.
Right.
But those of you who have been playing in this field will very quickly realize that optimization has a ceiling when you consider current information, right? I know I have so many shipments, so I'll be able to optimize only to a certain extent. And Varun, correct me if I'm wrong, but sortation belts have a setup time of 30 to 45 minutes, right? So if I have to go change, saying that, okay, now this is my configuration. If I put something on this belt, it gets dropped at that gate. For this pin code, I have to change that. It will take me 45 minutes. And my sortation belt is sitting idle. My inventory shipments are sitting idle. I don't want to do that. Can I predict? And that becomes the third step. Can I predict what's going to happen in the future? Right? If I'm able to accomplish all these three well, systemization, optimization, and prediction, I think I'll be able to do a very good job of automating the process or supply chain, right? Now coming to the limitation part, and Ramesh, I think started off with, that's where he said supply chain is not one process. Right? It's a set of cascading process, one adding into another, right? And when you think about cascading processes, yes, you can have one process which is automated and the next process which is automated. Are we going to eliminate the human in between? Very unlikely, right? And that's a personal opinion I have, but it's very unlikely. That's not, right. You can eliminate, but the human is not going away. The human is also not going away for another crucial reason, right? Unlike a bank, where if the software is the source of truth, right? If the software, someone's bank account says that person has 500 rupees, that is the reality. The person can argue whatever they want, they can discuss, they can debate, but the source of truth is that system, right? It's 500 rupees, that's 500 rupees. With supply chain management, that's not the case. The source of truth is the physical world.
Right.
My system can say that my shipment or a package is in Delhi. If in reality it is in Pune, it is in Pune. My system can do what it wants, right? So that's the other aspect. When I automate, can I automate to be able to manage all these exceptions? Again, my opinion is a resounding no. I'll not be able to do that. Can I do a good job of it by trying to build systems which can handle exceptions? Yes. But the reality is that the physical world is going to be the source of truth, and a human is very likely to be in control at any point in time. So we'll probably get to a very good stage of automation, more so in fulfillment centers and all of it. But entirely automated supply chain management, it's a lot of time in the future, right? So back to you, Neha. Any other questions?
Right. I was about to say, wow. The human, as you said, is maybe the edge as well as a limitation. Although I'm not saying that it is limitation of a kind that you would want to eliminate, but that becomes and remains the key. I would pass it to Suresh actually, because we quoted a couple of times, and maybe eventually we'll go to Ramesh as well for more details. So Suresh, how is technology at SnapBiz is beneficial for integrating that end user experience to the back end supply chain and in turn making both efficient? Because see, we've been talking about the making human efficient. How is your technology making human more efficient?
Yeah, in fact, like I really liked stuff that Govind mentioned and Varun mentioned, and I would like to sort of engage a bit on that on a deeper side, right? So I mean, clearly, I mean, on the FMCG side, it's all about supply and demand, and as I highlighted, Kirana's being the 90% of this whole ecosystem. Now, how do you do this, right? I mean, because see, everyone, it's a fairly fragmented ecosystem, right? This Kirana store over here is, the share of his shop is probably taken by, at best, like a Levers would take about 7 to 8% share of his shop, right? So everyone's looking at it from a different piece. So how do you optimize this whole ecosystem, right? And that is where the technology of SnapBiz has been quite useful, right? And if I bring back what Govind mentioned, right? It is the technology innovations in the supply side have to be extremely real-time data driven, and how do you get real-time data is by getting real-time data in the store, and that's what our focus has been predominantly. So our POS machine, which sits there in the in the Kirana store, which we actually call as in very simplistic words, we actually call it as the money making machine for a Kirana store, right? Because he just sees it as a simple money making machine to digitize himself and be connected to the ecosystem to benefit from the entire ecosystem. So if he's able to have a better demand through this, he's able to make more money, he's able to streamline supplies, he's able to optimize his costs, right? So that's sort of, so when we sit in the store, we are able to see both the demand side and the supply side phenomenally well, right? And we are able to, in fact, like we bring in we are probably the only source of real-time baskets out of Kirana stores in the country, right? And this basket information is what helps various brands, various market research agencies, logistics companies, cash and carries help actually getting this information that what's happening, like in a zip code or in a particular region, locality, city, the finest granular information that you can get out of any of these hyperlocal ecosystems is from some of these baskets. And these change very dramatically, right? Under COVID, like what I just mentioned, like there is suddenly an interest in packaged foods, or there's a sudden interest in small packs versus large packs. So all this has to be factored into your supply chain ecosystem, and that sort of ties in very well, the data leading to a transformation of this whole technology. And I think the second part which I wanted to really pick was Varun's point, which is what I call as behavioral engineering, right? And we focus a lot on that, right? So see, life of a kirana store, or the levels for us to expect him to adopt technology is not really simple. But the whole ecosystem, as this presentation shows, is that it's the whole data ecosystem, demand, supply, everything's around the kirana guy able to use this machine. And when he's able to use, there should be a want to it, and there should be an ease to it, right? And want is sort of built in when we say you get connected to the digital ecosystem, you get the benefits of the entire ecosystem, right? But how does he use it, right? I mean, and that's what is behavioral engineering that we do, right? So for example, his challenge in a kirana store is something very simple, right? Like there are 5 people standing in front of him. One guy is running a large list, one guy is running 2 items, so he has to be able to service on multiple carts with a touch ecosystem to quickly service this guys. Or another very small example is, he's got to have an interface which is, say, he's a Hindi speaking guy and the consumer is a Tamil speaking person, right? So he can type in Hindi and he can print a bill in Tamil, right? So these are the fine aspects of design that we take care of in the technology, so that a person is able to use and consume this technology phenomenally well. And when he consumes, the entire ecosystem is benefited out of it, because he's generating a beautiful virtual platform for consumers. So for B2C application, he's consuming, he's producing data which is useful for supply chain integration, and that's where we sort of work very hard at, because once we are able to solve a daily problem of a kirana store, and take him to this digital transformation journey along with us, right? The whole ecosystem gets benefited, and the transformations are influenced by us with this adoption behavior across the entire ecosystem.
Right. So think about it. We spoke about the micro level facilitation of human, and then drawing inspiration from that, talking about the macro system level changes, and while we are serving the end user, as well as facilitating that end user service through big supply chain initiatives. I would like to go to Ramesh and get his perspective. So Ramesh, how would you define smart jumbo tail warehouses? Because see, we spoke about everything else. How things go in a jumbo tail warehouse, and what are the primary concerns that you addressed in warehouse transformation?
Yeah. So first thing is, I'll definitely take a cue from what Govind mentioned. Yes, in SCM, what is there on the ground is the source of truth. I can never say that you can have this system and it says this. It is never going to be source of truth. And yes, it's all about processes. Maybe I'll take a analogous question to this, saying, okay, we have a phone, we have a smartphone, right? What is the difference, right? Phone also I can call, and smartphone I can do beyond, such as, let us say, if I want to book a cab, right? So like I can't even think of doing it in like phone without like going through hassle of few hours, right? And I can't explore products and order to phone in any way, as in I can't just discover, right? So what smartphone did here is it made certain things efficient, and it opened up plethora of options of doing things which otherwise couldn't have been imagined, right? So how did it do it? It is able to connect to a lot of different kind of systems. When I say system, it's not just about internet. My phone can even interact via Bluetooth to some other devices, or like any other peripheral device also it should connect, right? So that way, there are a couple of major things. Is efficiency is one key driver, and the second thing is ability to connect to a lot of different kind of systems, and taking the data and again making this more and more efficient. So smart warehouse is not any smartphone or anything smartness, right? Is not a one-stop solution. It is keeps on need to keep on evolving, right? That's why I'll
Right.
take a on now WMS and how smart warehouse systems differ. So a typical WMS, if I think about, so an oversimplified WMS would be like, so typical warehouse processor, I receive certain things, I manage them in storage, and then I dispatch them when order comes. Right. So there are a lot of other parts. I'm talking about a very simplified one. If I think about a smart warehouse, it needs to do similar operations, but the use of technology, and it should be seamlessly able to connect to rest of the systems, and then provide feedback, and also take feedback from rest of the systems and adopt itself. Right.
Mhm.
Also, it should be able to use the data and predictive analytics and machine learning to enhance these aspects of it. Right. If I have to take you through how Jumbo Warehouse has actually become smart, right, and smarter and going forward, right. So at the beginning when we were very small, right? So we had, let us say, 100 around products, and then we had a warehouse maybe 4 times big of a 2 BHK. I would say maybe 2,000 square feet warehouse. The ground, the person who is there in control, he knows where to keep these 100 products, and then how much to keep where, and then whenever orders come, he can dispatch, right? So then we started scaling up. Now users have become thousands, right? So, and the selection that these users require also kept on evolving. That is, somebody requires FMCG, somebody requires staples, and somebody requires different kind of fragile elements and everything. So now when the selection also has grown and users have grown, definitely this warehouse is not going to be sufficient, and you would take a bigger warehouse, right? With a bigger warehouse, I would not even go to the sophisticated like sorters also. I'll just go with the racks, simple racks I have in my warehouse, right? So now suddenly it opens up certain problems, right? So I have 1,000 odd products, and I have these many racks, right? Which product do I keep where, right? So
Yeah.
I can't keep a high selling item on a fourth floor of the fourth level of the rack, right? And the second problem is I have finite amount of space now. I have 1,000 products. How much of it can I procure, right? This is
Right.
the second problem. Let's see if I solve these problems as well. Now the thing is there are thousands of customers who are ordering across these 1,000 products. Now when I look at the orders, they're all scattered across all these racks. Now how do I pick them? I can't just go for each and every customer and pick them. I need to pick it in bulk and break it and again transport, right? So if I bring logistics also into picture now,
Right.
right? So previously logistics of like a smaller warehouse is very easier to actually transport. So now warehouse, it needs to handle, let us say, FMCG items and staple items, right? The way their work is very different. I can't just take all the FMCG items and put 125 kg rice bag on top of it, then gone. Everything is damaged, right? So that way the system need to adapt to these realities as well and give a flexibility to supply chain in a way how to process them, right? So that way logistics also becomes a lot more complex, right? Now I take it little more further, right? So now at this scale, right now we have like multiple warehouses across cities, and then there are warehouses which are of 1 lakh square feet as well, and we are dealing with thousands of products, right? So at this point of time, the same problems that I talked about, right? So that becomes just so complex for even to do a algorithmic way as well, right? So that's where I think I really like the way actually Govind has put it, that systemization, optimization, and like predicting, right? This is what I think is that systemization is on the place where we did 20 feet, and then we try to optimize the amount of like how we need to keep what product for efficient picking, and then now without machine learning and like having a very good predictive analytics of like how it is going to go, like it will just become impossible, right? So that's where at every moment system need to keep on becoming smart. And the second part of it is the connectedness, right? Everything that is happening in my warehouse, the rest of the marketplace systems, such as let us say my app, if at all there is an inventory that is damaged here, it needs to know. Otherwise, it is going to promise some other customer and he's going to pick it up when it doesn't come, right? So that way, like the interconnectedness between the smart warehouse and also like rest of the systems is very much important. And when Benlog Square Feet warehouse when I'm talking about, right, humans don't work, and there are going to be a lot of systems, and then there are a lot of weighing sensors and put to light systems and everything. My app need to know that these systems exist. It should be able to talk to them, right? So that's another part of it, right? So when we think about smart warehouse, yes, it brings automation into picture, ML into picture, predictive analytics into picture, and a lot of data on how things are happening on the ground, because one guy can't have a view of what is happening in a 1 lakh square feet. He needs a lot of systems on how things are, which product is moving, which product is not moving. And so in e-commerce, that too, like the product mix itself keeps on varying every month depending on season, right? So that it becomes a lot more complex problem, which opens up quite a lot of problems in a smart warehouse which need to be solved, right? So coming to the problem of what concerns need to be addressed, the thing is the people who are going to use my apps are not literate. That is where the major problem comes into picture. My apps can't take the human element away at all. As in, I can't just give the same descriptive ways of saying, "Hey, pick this." I need to be able to give visual cues to him. I mean, they understand images a lot more. If I have to give an example of racks, there are 20 racks. I can't just tell him saying, "Go to 19th rack." It's not intuitive to him. We can't keep on counting where is 19. Rather than if at all, I'm just saying that rack 1 is apple, this is banana, this is this thing, right? While they look like a very primitive problem solving solutions, but this is what they actually require. As in this, when you bring it into system rather than saying rack 19, go to rack 19, it will say go to rack elephant. You'll be able
Yes.
to relate. So that's why that kind of human elements need to be brought from design perspective as well. And even the second thing is supply chain, as I mentioned about processes, all the processes need to be there in the system from day one, which is impossible. And the other thing is, yes, as in like they need to be adaptable for like any kind of supply chain design, because if supply chain comes and says that I want to change my supply chain network later, if I say let's do it in after 2 months, I need 2 months to do it, right? It just can't work. So I need to be highly adaptable supply chain system which can adapt to any of the supply chain processes that are working on. So that's where the major complexity would come into picture.
Right. Actually, I agree to you about telling user where to go and how to pick things completely. Because one of the projects that I was doing recently, very recently, where we were working on optimized picking path. And it is a store associate who's picking or even laying or relaying or replenishing. So both ways, the system would say that pick the heaviest first and move the trolley so that the heaviest goes at the bottom.
Right.
But the heaviest is just adjacent to some of the lightweight things that are also there. But the associate will always pick them together,
Right.
irrespective of how many times you would change that. So we had to change the design of trolley itself so that we can have two sections of the lightest and the heaviest.
To give
So-
you one
so
more
the
example,
changes-
right? Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but to give you one
Yeah.
more example of what human element it is, right? The systems typically are looked at, I mean, from at least engineering perspective, they looked at a QPS. I mean, how much of scale it is, right? But here they need to be treated from a human effort perspective. To give a simple example, when I have a pallet with 20 bags, right, and another pallet with 20 bags, if my algorithm says pick 10 bags from here, pick 10 bags from here, you need to manually like move all of them. Rather, if I say pick 20 bags completely from here, though it is not optimized for some other factor, just drag the trolley, right? So that is the kind of human elements that need to come into algorithms, which is not at all like easier from engineering background. So that's where like it becomes a lot more essential for all the engineers, product managers, and actually designers to go to warehouses and actually sit there and work. That's how actually we have built. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't have been. We wouldn't even realize that these kind of problems exist, right? So that is another aspect where like engineering itself has to be thought in a very different way.
Right.
Actually, just to sort of butt in a little bit, I mean, I could not control myself because, it's amazing because when you're talking about 10,000 square feet warehouse and there are problems that you're talking about, right? And it's exactly the problems we solve for the 500 square feet Kirana
Right.
store, right? And it's
Right.
amazing that, and every aspect of it, the language, the problems with respect to managing his supply demand, the problems with respect to what he stacks, where he stacks, every aspect of it. So and the language, the behavior on top of it, right? So it's very interesting that every aspect was having a direct parallel in a 500 square feet store that we manage, right? So
A store is a mini warehouse anyway, so it is not
absolutely.
going to go away. That aspect is not going to go away. Yes.
No, I quite agree with that, and very interestingly, all of you talked about the human element, the logistic part of it, which is actually, very integral to the entire system. While you talk about, logistics being there, you have to also think about the human element playing its own role in terms of, like Suresh mentioned, the language, the way the understanding happens, and similarly what Ramesh was also talking about, integration of how all of these systems come together to finally form a supply chain, which is, kind of, you can say automated, not quite completely automated. These are the factors which will anyway impact it. So, I mean, it brings us to, this question of integration and customization, because, ultimately, we have to integrate with these. We have to use technology to integrate. we need to use technology also adapt or customize, you know. And you know, bringing in Govind here, interestingly, like, you know, you guys have been mentioning about you know, the human and the logistic part of it. So like, I would like to talk about, you know, this whole concept of fulfilling centers, or I don't know if it's the same as dark store formats or not. So do you think, you know, this integration of these formats is efficient, or are there any challenges which are need to be tackled in Indian context? Like, you know.
Kajal, I think previous panelists have also touched upon it, right?
Yeah,
And I'll
yeah,
just
yeah.
summarize. I think it's okay. Let me first present my understanding of a fulfillment center, FC, and a dark store. Right? To me, they are subtly different. A fulfillment center, when I imagine a large, like 1,000 square feet, multi-thousand, 10,000 square feet, and typically located outside of urban areas, right? Outside of the city. And recently, the dark store adoption that we've been seeing both in the US as well as in India, right? It's small pockets, like Ramesh was describing, smaller facilities located in urban areas, right? So that's my understanding of an FC and a dark store, right? And to answer the efficiency question, I don't think any of these in isolation is efficient. And that's what I think businesses have been realizing, and they have been bringing them all together. The reason none of these are efficient in isolation, again, we'll go back to the fundamental aspects of demand, right? The nature of demand is different. When I think about grocery, and this is again example of each of us could have experienced this, right? When I understand grocery, I might be ordering certain items on a weekly or a monthly basis, right? Versus I feel like eating pizza tonight. My son is after me, so I need cheese. I'm going to have to get cheese in the next few hours, right? That's more impulse driven, more ad hoc kind of a demand, right? And I cannot necessarily place an order and say, okay, it'll come tomorrow and be done. And then there's also this third element that particular neighborhood store has very good pop-up, right? And I need that. I don't trust any of these large e-commerce players or any of these. I don't worry about this dark store or anything. I want that particular item from that particular neighborhood store, right? So I think for the Indian context, we'll have to bring all of these together. And I see that's what's happening also, right? So if you take examples of large players, we have flows where we can order something and get it delivered the next day or the day after or even next week, right? And then there are flows which are coming in which commit to 90 minutes delivery, right? And then when they say 90 minutes delivery, they offer both that, okay, I'll have my captive inventory, I can present that to you, or I'll buy it from this particular store that you so choose, right? So all of it coming together is what is going to build efficiency. But there's another element, I think, and that's something that we appear to be missing in general when all of these conversations happen. This is it's presumptuous of me to say this, so please forgive me if I'm wrong. But that's when we talk about these things, we're in our mind, we're assuming we are in Bangalore or Chennai, right, or Delhi. So we're talking about metros and tier 1 cities. What's going to happen to tier 2 and the rest of India, right? How is that going to function? I really don't have an answer there. And I think all of these things are just nascent, they're evolving, and tier 1 metros, they're doing very well, and we are reacting, or we are kind of doing a very good job there. The rest of India, I think, is yet to be seen. Do we even understand what they need? I would say a little bit of a longer journey there for us to understand, then fix it, and then also be efficient there. So yes, I think in the tier 1 metros, we appear to be doing a good job, but the rest of it, a lot needs to be done, a lot needs to be thought through. Back to you, Kajal.
Right. Very good food for thought there, because obviously we are always looking at sitting in metros and just trying to, you know, solve problems here. While obviously India is an interesting fabric of tier 2, tier 3 cities where obviously the problem still persists and there are solutions which are required to be done. And obviously that's exactly why, for us, customization becomes extremely important. Varun, bringing you in here, like, what do you think of this? Like, Govind talking about challenges, existing at tier 2 level. what are the kind of customizations which are available, of with the help of artificial intelligence, say machine learning or robotics, which can actually shape future for such, penetration, such areas.
So, Kajal, on working on that front, we are definitely trying to understand the changing need and our warehouse customers. Who we are not dealing with the retail customers or something, but definitely that is impacting our core base, and we're trying to understand what is their need and trying to evolve. So, on that front, we are working aggressively to help our customers, our partners in changing need and trying to evolve. For example, if person wants to shift up another area, how we can manage up or build up a new things or changing demand. So we have a number of solutions in terms of the softwares which are trying to moving more toward an analytical mode, how help him decide in what decisions to make. So there are several tools we are working up. We have already several tools to help him, but still we are working on toward that one, trying to cope up with different technologies we had. To give in that one, just I would like to share a short videos with all the audience so that we can get, and also to a changing sortation need, we have developed one of the finest solutions right now. So just I just play around. I think its screen is visible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there audio to it? Yeah, I'll have to increase the audio.
Yes, it would come after some time. It would take some time.
You would need to share the audio on Zoom. Varun, you will need to share the audio on Zoom.
Okay.
You hit on
There's an
more.
option called share my computer sound. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very, very interesting. I'm suddenly very jealous of Varun.
Quite similar, Neha, to what you were also showing, but this is another level altogether.
Yeah.
Last presentation, replenishing and sorting it out.
So some of these we are still working on. Some are already in the production. Some are already in the site. But still, they're coming to Govin's point that we are definitely going for an optimization. As a designers, it's our prime objective to understand customer and try to optimize the technology that is there.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, that was a very interesting example, and like Neha mentioned that. It's very interesting to see such products which are there, and the kind of efficiency levels which you kind of, told us that they're going to be. So, I mean, extremely sleek for sure. So, Ramesh, what are bringing you in again here? What are the offerings, or definitely, technology has made processes smarter and efficient, like we seeing with Varun and everybody else. Are there any additional opportunities that you see, from technology side, solving time, and how that might, shape the future of, supply chain management?
Got it. So there are quite a lot of them actually. So more from, first of all, to start with, there are a lot from automation. I feel there are a lot of hardware automation that needs to become a lot more cheaper and higher reliability, I would say. Because to give you a simple example of, so you are aware of stock take, and stock take is a simplest operation in the warehouse where you just go to one place and count to make sure the system and physical world is matching, right? So one of the problems that we face in, let's say, 1 lakh square feet warehouse is to do the stock take of whole warehouse. It takes around a couple of weeks with even 10-15 people, right? So then now when I think about this problem in a different way, where if I just have a forklift with a weighing sensor, right? Because we are heavily into staples, right? 25 kg bags or like 10 kg bags, right? So if a forklift lifts that particular pallet and says that it is 1 ton, then it is as good as there are 40 bags, right? So with this kind of automation, we can definitely do a stock take every day, right, of the whole warehouse, right? But when we wanted to bring such kind of automation into our infrastructure, so the first and foremost challenge is the reliability, where we saw that, okay, we, first of all, discovery itself is a problem, like to find a vendor who will be able to easily give this, right? There are only handful of people who actually are providing these kind of automations, right? And also they are at a higher cost that in general startups might not be able to easily afford. We have taken a plunge into it by going towards tech because we are more towards tech ways of solving than operational ways. So but reliability is one thing that is definitely required there. And also even the simplest things such as barcode scans, right? They're normally at a very high cost, and even the open source barcode scanners such as, let's say, Google Vision that is there, right? They don't they are not on par with whatever, let us say, any of the premium grade scanners that they would do. So that is a lot of automation that needs to come with high reliability and cheaper. And the second part is there are a lot of places where AI itself can help, because most of the solutions of automations are towards the places where the elements are tagged, such as, let us say, a barcoded FMCG item, a barcoded shipment, right? These are easily tackled through automation. But when I think about a 25 kg rice bag or like 10 kg rice bag, to give you a simple example, so in our warehouse, one of the problems that had to be solved through AI was the people who are working are not so late. So if I think about 2 bags, Kesher Kali rice bag or Kesari rice bag, it's very tough for him to actually distinguish in the English, right? Or a raw rice bag, beaten rice bag, steamed rice bag. I didn't know that these many rice varieties exist before joining Jumbo Time, but yes, so these many rice varieties are there, and all of them look alike because this is not a branded. Like if at all I think about ITC products or any other, right? They're all branded. I can be able to easily like go through barcode, but these are not in a place where like they can easily recognize. That's where majority of the mistakes happen. So let us see if these mistakes are happening. What will happen? First of all, customer will lose. Customer experience is going for a toss. Second thing is returns, more and more touch points, right? And inventory accuracy is anyway going into bad. First thing is this can be controlled through process to certain extent, but the thing is the way the supply chain journey is there, and also like how tough it is to align to a process, right? It becomes a lot more like, I mean, for a system, if at all you look at it, right? I mean, for a machine learning algorithm, it can actually give this result in milliseconds, saying whether it is right or not, right? It can easily distinguish. Such kind of like automation need to come more deeper into the systems that we already have it in like our warehouses and the other places where I mentioned already. I mean, in every aspect of warehousing, from procurement and also how I manage storage. I mean, how my space utility is higher, because that space is also a commodity there because I'm paying for the space, right? So how to effectively use this space, this itself is a very like complex like science to actually understand on like how much of space is utilized to the maximum extent and which product need to be given which space. So and dispatches and logistics, route planning is a much more wider problem which we need to solve for B2B, because especially I'm saying route planning because most of the route planning algorithms and the current software solutions that are available are planned towards B2C, where like they are very efficient in tracking the shipments and everything. But when I think about one Kirana order, right, he will order 25 rice bags, that is 600 kgs, right? So and along with it he will add 100 Maggi packets as well. So I can't just track everything in one way as well. So the logistics itself is very different, and the route planning has to be different. there's a lot of technology that need to have a lot of different algorithms that need to come up, and also trust and safety is another area where we need to have a lot of things for logistics. Right? So I would say there are a lot of things that we can do it in supply chain and logistics.
Right, right, right. You know, very interestingly, like you said, Ramesh, there are, there are basic issues in, handling inventory. And obviously, there is a price point also at which these technology applications come in. So you can't just be using it at every point anywhere unless it really, really impacts. And there are only a handful of people who are making it. So, like, bringing the question back from larger warehouses or larger shops to a small kirana offering, obviously price point, adaptation, language, being able to identify. Suresh, what is SnapBiz's offering to these kirana shops, considering all these challenges which are there? Because you need to adapt and be able to have your customers also adopt, right? So how do you guys work around that?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I mean, I could resonate quite a lot with Ramesh, right? I mean, as he was talking, because it's a large warehouse problem shrinking down to a small kirana store, and I think that's where sort of we are. I mean, our whole technology is built around making a vertically integrated kirana ecosystem, right? So the focal point being kirana, but is every problem that a large ecosystem is a large FMCG ecosystem is trying to solve, right? So on one end we try to provide him all the benefits which are needed by him to increase his demand, right? And when it comes to demand increase, like let's say I take a B2C application that a kirana store has, um, he has to keep updating his catalog. He has loose items. He has to pictorially be able to update it. He has to seamlessly go online. His inventory has to be real time, because a consumer, if he orders something today, in fact, most of the e-commerce struggle with this, right? So if somebody orders something online on a kirana store, quite often you go there and the inventory is not there, right? So an effective utilization of the POS makes the inventory live, right? And that's 100% view of the store, right? So the consumer is getting. So on the demand side, that is one assistance that technology sort of provides, right? From having this integrated ecosystem. On the other side, which is today's topic, which is on the supply chain, on the supply side itself, right? There are about 80 to 90 trucks which are coming to his store to service his needs, right? And so there's an immense potential of automation, automatic order generation. So we work with a couple of cash and carries where the quantities go down automatically and orders generated. So there's a lot of potential for consolidation. But having said that, it's a India's distribution network in FMCG is probably one of the most efficient in the world. I mean, so the unit metrics are very tough, right? Because India is probably the only country where a retailer or even distributor is making like a 10% margin or 7% margin and still taking home money, right? Unlike any other country where people don't even go near it without a 35% margin on this business, right? So it's a very well-oiled system, right? And it's probably one of the countries where women can wash hair with a 1 rupee sachet, right? I mean, that's it doesn't happen in other countries, right? So it's an extremely well-oiled system. So it's got to be very efficient, and that's where the central focal point of technology that we provide to the kirana store becomes extremely critical for the whole ecosystem. On the other end, in fact, it ties in very well with a question that came up, which was that how do we supply the supply of goods and the supply of money to the kirana store, right? So to know that there are two aspects, right? That what's he billing, what's his financial health, and with a lot of surrogate information on his billing and baskets, we know that he's running so much of khata with a lot of consumers. And on the other end, he's trying to push off some distributor or supplier payments which he cannot afford to pay because he has to probably pay his daughter's school fee this month, right? So, and we know this information because this is what happens in the box that we provide him, right? So that's where like we tie them up with like a lot of banking partners. We bring in NBFCs for providing him some micro loans, and this is information which gets a true health of the store. I mean, because this is 100% information of the store, right? And and the other aspect is, the whole, we provide technology. We work with, since we are baskets of traditional trade, we work with market research companies. We work with brands for merchandising, bringing him all the coupons, discounts that he could offer to consumers, uh, uh, and a lot of data to, the entire ecosystem, which can help in planning the distribution. So all the problems that Ramesh has potentially, or even like Govind's mentioning, a lot of that could be solved by a lot of these this fine-grained data that comes, right? It streams in every day. We get 100,000 bills day on day, right? So yeah, that's sort of in a nutshell. The focal point being Kirana. We sort of focus on that technology, but the APIs, or that all the information that flows around from that box makes it extremely important to mark his digital presence in this whole ecosystem, assisting the entire ecosystem actually, right?
Suresh, there's a question from the audience, directed to you and Ramesh as well. So I'll start with you. How do you, overcome cash crunch for the retailers during COVID? So did you involve any supply chain financing into it, or is there anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this where I was sort of, talking about supply of money to a retailer, right? So that's an interesting question. So there are two aspects, right? One is the data, right? Which retailer is struggling. We got to know that, right? And so that we can then go and talk to so based on and that's the data which I was talking about, based on a lot of information that we have on his historic trends, which is coming down, because see, for a retailer, we manage both his khata for consumers, and we also manage his supply and distributor credit, right? So that's also happening in this POS machine, right? So so we know precisely what's his health financially, right? So that's information. And now we work very closely with wide range of players. See, if it's a small retailer, you need to be talking to someone like Dwara Trust, who's one of our partners, right? Or if it's a slightly largish guy, it's a HDFC or various NBFCs who come to play for retailer roles. So we actively work with a lot of such players and try to give them micro loans for solving the cash crunch issues, right? So and it's extremely well received by retailers, because we that's a fundamental problem. Unlocking this cash problem actually is a indirect benefit to the whole ecosystem. Like, I mean, a lot of Ramesh's problem, a lot of ITC's problems are potentially solved because the cash helps Kirana to stock items and helps increasing the whole ecosystem's demand and supply flowing through that ecosystem, right? So
Right.
I would want to add a couple of points there,
Yeah.
along with what Suresh mentioned. So, to answer your question, actually, this problem is not just COVID. That even before COVID, cash has been a biggest problem for them, because, okay, let us say the time they are ordering, they might have had cash, but I'll go and deliver after 2 days, right? And the amount of cash he is going to have is a factor of how much of his customers are going to pay him by cash or card or Google Pay, right? So he just can't plan a cash for me at the beginning itself, right? So that's where the payment solutions as well for Kiranas had to be very different since beginning. That is, if a typical B2C payment, if you think about cash on delivery, or let's say net banking, right? So that's what we do, or any of the wallets, right? So for B2B, since beginning, multiple ways of giving cash had to be provided for us since last 4 years, right? So where if at all he had 10,000 rupees of delivery, he can actually pay whatever the cash he has, and let's say 2,000 rupees to some wallet. And as a marketplace, we have a great marketplace as well, where we tie up with a lot of NBFCs, and there's a marketplace where we score the customer, and then each of these NBFCs can actually give credit to him, right? So he can pay some through this credit. So that way, a simple payment problem itself, right? Now in Kirana terms, always is a bigger payment problem than actually typical B2C problem. So that's where even COVID time, the credit definitely had helped them, and also like the overall multiple ways where he can pay single transaction. So that is definitely is something that they look forward to.
Right. Wow, well, that's interesting, because that's another aspect which you probably never think of, and that's obviously very important in this whole supply chain management when you're talking about, and without which it will not probably function as well. And obviously there is a bit of innovation, ground reality integration, which is always required. So,
So here
yeah,
I
Narendra.
think that we would like to have a discussion amongst all the panelists on this question, that what innovations in design and technology are expected to drive retail and supply chain strategy in the next 5 years or maybe 10 years down the line. And I think we can start with Govind.
Sure, Niranjan. Uh, in terms of what innovation in technology do I foresee, let me start with the design aspect first, right? I mean, we touched upon it. Neha was talking about how we can have a pick path optimization problem. By the way, Neha, we need to exchange notes. I face the same problem. We can have a pick path optimization problem, and the picker need not necessarily adhere to it, right? So adherence is one aspect. When we look at it from an engineering or a tech perspective, we forget the human element, right? We want to make it as efficient as possible. Human may not necessarily agree, and that's why design comes in, right? So I think that's one area I definitely see things changing with the acknowledgement of the human element and in the process to incorporate it. I think we might end up moving from a dictated perspective that here's a pick path for you or here's a delivery path for you, go adhere to it. Rather, it might move towards incentivization that I expect you to pick 60 items in an hour. If you do it, you get paid so much, versus if you don't pick 60, you will not get that paid as much, right? So give them the independence. And that's where I think one change may potentially come in. So that's one. Another change that I foresee or I think would happen is around the integration of the different players in the market, right? And I'm not sure if you are familiar with the Prime Minister's address, right? And Niti Aayog has also come up with 7 new platforms around, and 2 of them are in this, right? So one is called Unnati. Unnati is targeted towards upskilling blue-collar workforce, right, across the board. So that's one. The other one that has come up, ULIP, right, Unified Logistics Interface Platform. So it's an integrated multimodal platform for digitizing the supply chain, right, particularly for logistics. So we already see an effort towards standardization in the country, right, and this particularly in the supply chain and the blue collar workforce, right? So that's the second area where I see technical innovations happening, particularly in integration and standardization. The third one we have been discussing, right, around automation. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. I'll just put in a caveat. I don't see drone deliveries in India anytime soon. Not happening. But I do see robots playing a crucial role in deep reserves, right? Deep reserves where we have this huge pallets which need to be moved from one area to another, from the deep to the forward, or need to be opened. So that's where I see a lot of automation happening. I'll pause here and hand it back to you.
Yeah, so like you have mentioned the robotic side of it, and I have a question for Varun, that having known for creating robots, tech products, or humanoids for warehouse solutions, how is Grey Orange transforming the supply chain management through that aspect?
So adding on to Govind's and taking forward for the pallet thing, definitely we discovered that there is a need for that one, and luckily we had a product to address that need. So it's going to be mass produced and aggressively shaping up in that. So that's in the pipeline. Another thing that I see a very great possibility is getting a visibility. Every section or every user in this particular section has different needs. From, as Ramesh and Suresh has pointed out, there is every channel or everything is looked from a different perspective. How can we provide, as in, for example, Kirana guy has a different need. The person who is moving or delivering has a different need. So there is a different challenges or different how we can optimize with the help of technology. And I totally agree with Ramesh's point of view that technology is very hard, because we are an early adopter at early stages. Technology is very expensive. So this would definitely take a time, and disruption would definitely happen up. And I am quite sure that it won't be years, it would be within months that we would be getting up new technologies and new automation tools to help up each and every cycle on that one. But one of the key things that I see is giving a visibility. Once we had a visibility, we had information from a user perspective, I had this visibility, I can make able to do it. And one of the things that I see in the software that we are developing more and more on software products, we are focusing more on making a decision making analytical tools which would guide every user in every zone on a supply chain to help make decision faster. Instead of having his own preview, we would are making or developing products to help him ease out the analytical approach, so that he would be able to how much I need to fix up. So there would be certain tools that we are already developed, some are in pipeline, which are helping as a warehouse manager, as a VP warehouse operations, to make my decisions more concrete in terms of my kirana as a kirana owner. I can make decision, and this tool is helping me to make decision. Okay, this is right, I can make a decision. So instead of having a cognitive load on that one, this is something a great potential I see developing up.
Right.
Right, Varun. Moving on to innovating the retail sector, we have already heard from Varun about how the warehouse is changing, and also about how the Kirana stores are shaping up. Ramesh, I would like to ask you that how is Jumbo Tail innovating in the retail sector, and how do you think it will evolve and shape the future?
Got it. So if I take a very step back to 10 years back, right? So let's say when originally e-commerce has started solving the problems of discoverability and availability and convenience for the users, right? That is a time where even as a computer science grad, I didn't have a smartphone, right? As in 2011. So at that moment of time, to bring me onto a smart platform was actually a tougher challenge. So fast forward down the line now, 2020, right now, even my parents are ordering from Grofers, Dunzo, and Big Basket and the delivery, right? So that's why consumers have evolved quite a bit, right? So what happened along with this is now the need of when 2011, when I got something in 2 or 3 days in convenience, I was very happy. But right now, I need things in 2 or 3 hours. That's where supply chain logistics are becoming more and more complex day by day. So if I think about like how to model the supply chain logistics, item needs to be there as close as possible to the customer. That's why I will be able to serve this to the customer. So that's where, like I would say, Kiranas have been doing that since forever. As in, that's the battery tested model for distribution channels, and that's where I feel Kiranas are here to stay, right? So, and if I ask a different question of, so at this point of time, Kiranas are 2016, like right now, they have adopted to technology quite a lot, and then they are only going to adopt more and more, as like Govind has mentioned, right? So yes, we are not thinking about tier 2 and tier 3 cities, but like I see, right, 2011 to 15, maybe smartphone was prevalent in majority of the metros, but right now in remote corner of India as well, there are smartphones. In the same way, I see kiranas themselves might be adopting to tech more and more in tier 2 3 cities. That is where I think the transformation began little late. So if I have these kiranas around me, they are using completely digital means, that like Suresh has mentioned, right, where they are using point of sale, they know what they have, the analytics is helping them to actually stock up, and also they are able to serve their customers, and also they are able to understand their customer behavior, right? So if at all they themselves have go through this digital transformation, now the problem statement becomes a little different. That is, I as a customer right now, there are 3 to 4 kiranas around me, and then how these kiranas can help me procure these goods better, right? So then same supply chain and logistics problems become very different. That is, how do I connect these kiranas to these customers, and how do I give like kiranas the necessary procurement information, right? So that is what the path that we are taking on right now, and that's where we have this the new initiative of J24, where we are taking a complete store, where, as Suresh mentioned, right, so the analogy of warehouse to the 500 square foot retail, right? So Suresh, to give a context, right, when we are building a smart warehouse, our vision has been, yes, even kirana should be able to directly use the same software that we are actually using in warehouse. And to be frank, last weekend actually we had a hackathon in our whole team, where the theme has been this, like, where how can we help our kirana like upgrade his store by giving the same technologies that we are using in our warehouse. How can they adopt, right? Within 3 years, we are able to actually give a stock take to our kirana, and we are able to give a receiving to our kirana, and there are a lot more things that we could give, right? So that way, kiranas need a lot of tech to empower their customers, and if we give them the tech, and then like they are able to interface with this customer, the whole ecosystem is going to be very different, and the logistics and supply chain problems that we need to solve are going to be very different, right? On the supply side as well, when I think about it, previously to give the distribution channel up till Kirana, right? So there are large scale companies such as, that is ITC, they are able to have this, establish this bigger distribution channels, right? But with respect to this B2B e-commerce marketplace platforms coming and multiple of them, now if a distributor or new brand wants to come and set up a distribution channel in the city, right now Bangalore, right? They can just come and stock up with any of the B2B e-commerce warehouses that are there, and they can just start selling, right? I mean, that is a kind of distribution network also that is getting formed now. That way, the way I see this shaping up is the whole of the distribution channel is going to become a lot more efficient, starting from the farmer, as it's not just about kiranas, because kiranas will need the other support side also to support them very heavily. So that's where there needs to be a lot of discussion that need to happen on the higher side of the supply chain, and also how we are going to upgrade the kiranas and how we are going to connect them to their customers. There's a lot of technology needs, as Suresh mentioned. Costs need to come in, Pareto analytics inside kirana shop, and like their, I mean, their customer behavior tracking a lot more.
Actually, just to sort of add a small additional point to that, right? So there's an interesting point which Ramesh mentioned, which is consolidation of a brand entry into kiranas, right? Why? See, brands actually, and we have to appreciate a parallel ecosystem that's running in the country, which is the distribution network, right?
Yes.
So, so it's a very massive change, right? And brand likes both, right? A brand likes fragmentation, actually. A distribution network, a wholesaler, and a consolidated warehouse. So it will be interesting how it pans out, and that's where, philosophy of SnapBiz has been quite a bit to enable everyone in the ecosystem, just like we are doing kiranas. And it's the same analogy of a consumer ordering from a particular B2C versus fragmented kiranas. Similarly, the supply will also be fairly fragmented. So it has to be one sort of interestingly connected, unified platform, which multiple ecosystems can leverage from, right? Or basically, with Kirana being a focal point, he's able to be on the platform and leverage from multiple ecosystems. Yeah, it's. I mean, the whole transformation is going to be very interesting in this space, because I mean, there are very fundamental things, right, today, that an order of goods is tied very closely with the supply of goods. Like a ITC distributor goes to a store and he books an order, he gets supplies it right there, right? They need to be completely disintegrated. But then there are challenges around it, because a Rin soap moves into the store very easily, but Tresemme shampoo probably, right, of a small pack doesn't go. So it needs to go there and had to be sold, right? So the distributor also is a sale booker, right? So there's like some bit of lines that will start emerge, or boundaries will start emerging in the system, technology driven entirely. Rural versus urban is a very entirely different ecosystem. Urban is more about optimizations. Rural is more about reach, having the fundamental products reaching out to these ecosystems. So lots of interesting challenges. Yeah, I mean, and then we sort of do foresee being a part of this technology innovation.
Very
I think we got a name for that as well, I guess. I mean, we saw recently that Twitter made a thing called Dukan Tech, right? I think that is what Dukan Tech is the future, I guess. Yes.
Right. No, very interesting, because obviously India has a huge, market in 2-tier, 3-tier towns, which is essentially based on kirana stores and the supply chain, which needs to be strengthened further. So I'm sure there is a huge market which is there to be accessed. There is huge opportunity which lies ahead, not only 2-tier, 3-tier, but rural areas as well, which Suresh rightly mentioned. So obviously the future is not only to develop more technology, but future to also be able to expand the network to be able to provide to the various requirements and the penetration into these areas which are inaccessible at this point of time. So I think, I mean, this topic of retail and supply chain management is like massive. When we talk about so many things, there's just way too many things you can talk about, and it's just so detailed. There are a lot of challenges, there are a lot of things which we have already discussed, and most of our panelists have actually brought to notice, which probably none of us really thought of. So actually today's consumers are continuously adapting their preferences and seeking more convenient ways to shop. And they want their purchases instantaneously delivered to their homes, at their doorstep, available outside of business hours, or brought through a click of a button. And we want to adapt to that, and not only customers, even the provider of technologies want to kind of make it even seamless for them. Thus, in this case, automated supply distribution provides a solution-based possibility for retailers to take advantage of product purchasing convenience and an opportunity to inflate sales outside of retail store hours. Thus, automating the retail supply chain means how retailers optimize processes, maximize both speed and efficiency, and they can deliver their products into our customers' hands as fast as they can. And obviously, keeping in mind all the challenges you guys talked about of human interaction, human intervention, and logistics part of it, which also Suresh very positively mentioned is very well oiled in our country. Logistics and the way we've kind of have it here in India, it's pretty well oiled. So it's nice to hear that. Also, as also retailers must optimize the processes to be efficient and affordable. So like also Ramesh and Suresh brought in this whole point of being able to afford such technologies, being able to adapt these technologies to this multilingual fabric of our country. That's again a challenge where, the designers, experts, engineers who come in, they need to look at it in a very different light, so to speak. So, I would say, concluding the session, it was very exciting to see the possibilities in automation. Your side of story, because you are working on ground level, trying to integrate, trying to, adapt it to the challenges and also the increased demand and the pattern of customer behavior. At the same time, be able to have customers enjoy this new hybrid experience, which is enabling, like, Ramesh is already saying that even my parents are now ordering from Grofers, that generation. In fact, people who are living in, say, a 2-tier or 3-tier, which probably did not see that adaptation till now, but they are hoping to, also get that name. So, also very interestingly, India is a bed of innovation, and there's so much exciting stuff which is happening here. And like Mr. Brad Smith, president and chief legal officer of Microsoft Corporation, he rightly mentioned at this responsible AI for social empowerment 2020 event, India will inevitably be one of world's AI superpowers. And that India's national strategy on AI lays the right foundation, not just to advance AI, but responsible AI built on ethical principles. And it can revolutionize every part of economy. So I think there is a huge, advantage in the times we live in. There is a positive side to seeing COVID coming in and we adapting to itself, and people trying to solve this at ground, working with the real customers, people, and the problems they face. So on that note, I would like to thank all the speakers for sparing time on your busy day and being part of this webinar and sharing your expertise with the participants, because this is a very, very interesting topic, very technical. A lot of times people take it for granted. We don't really give enough importance to supply chain management, which actually impacts the front end so much. I'm sure all the participants gained valuable insights into what will be the future of automation. Also, I would like to invite Niranjan to quickly summarize the key takeaways from the discussion today. Niranjan, yes. Over to you.
Yes. So it was indeed a very informative session with interesting PPTs and inputs talking about very important issues and concerns that we need to address. To begin with, Suresh highlighted how Kirana stores have played key role during COVID by adopting digital platforms, and consumers in turn had developed respect for them. Jumbo Tail assisted Kirana stores with Kirana IDs to help them move during the COVID lockdown when the demand spiked by 3 times overnight. Further, real-time demand forecast and supply and the supply needs and the supply chain needs to be agile to react to it, which was something that was that was highlighted by Govind in a very detailed manner. Grey Orange has further introduced software and hardware products to automate warehouses in order to speed up processes, addressing the integration of design and technology. Varun further highlighted how it is essential to take a human-centric approach in design, which is financially as well as technologically feasible. Going further, pointed out these three aspects of systemization, optimization, and prediction as the pillars of automating processes. He specifically pointed out how humans will still be integral as the source of truth for SCM. And I think that was a point that was discussed further by the rest of the panel. And fine aspects of design can be addressed by behavioral engineering to transform Kirana stores into smart stores so that the entire ecosystem is benefiting. Ramesh further pointed out how a smart warehouse needs to keep evolving by incorporating technology to automate processes. And he also emphasized on the importance of connecting the warehouse to rest of the systems so as to receive feedback and adapt accordingly. He also emphasized on the human element, which he feels that cannot be eliminated at all, and the system needs to be designed in a way that is relevant to humans. Varun also presented some of the robots by Grey Orange, which are expected to increase efficiency exponentially and change the future of warehouse. Automation in procurement to storage management to route planning is something that Ramesh pointed out was extremely important in order to grow in the future. Suresh added how SnapBiz is assisting Kirana stores to address the demand by updating catalogs as well as in turn enabling automatic order generation on the supply side. As a way forward, innovations are likely to boom in automation and robotics sector and hopefully become cost effective. We also foresee automation in the Kirana stores as per their needs, just like it's being done in the warehouses. Hoping that for our attendees, it was a constructive and helpful experience as well. The information all the experts shared has opened doors to multiple possibilities in understanding the future of retail industries. We will be very happy to reply to your queries. Please ask questions to hey@studiomeso.co.in. My sincere thanks to all the panelists in participating with such ardor. Hoping to connect with you all again soon. Have a great day and thank you so much, everyone.